Patrice is a global leader in quality and regulatory with 30 years of experience. He helps companies determine the right investments so that quality and regulatory can become real competitive differentiators. In today's episode, we spoke about how to develop a cost-effective QARA strategy, how to be lean and compliant at the same time, if it's even possible, and what business leaders really want from their QARA partners in 2024. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Career Diaries by Elemed, the podcast dedicated to talking about careers in the MedTech industry. Today, I'm joined by Patrice Nedelec, VP of Quality and Regulatory at Sirona Medical. Patrice, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thank you for having me and taking the time.
And I noticed a French accent there, but you're not actually in France, are you? You're on the other side of the pond, as we say.
I am. I did migrate a long time ago.
And where are you dialing in from?
Originally, I'm from France, from Brittany, and I moved to the US about 25 years ago.
So you're on the west coast of the US right now, joining us from some lovely sunshine.
My company is on the west coast. But I'm based out of Florida, in Tampa, Florida.
Very nice. Well, still another sunny state. So really excited to have you on today to be talking about how to develop a cost-effective QARA strategy. I know this is something that you're super passionate about. And hopefully this is going to add value to our audience, as a lot of them are in MedTech. And this is a constant question, even more so with cost pressures that we're seeing now in QARA. But before we go into the technical details, maybe you could give us a brief intro as to who you are and what you do.
Of course. So my name is Patrice. I've been in the software industry for about 30 plus years now. I did start as a software developer. And after a number of years of practice of software development, I decided that I would be also interested in testing management. So I became a testing manager somewhere, a quality manager somewhere. And over time, my focus became, especially since I've been in the US, my focus has been quality management for software, especially medical devices, and regulatory affairs. So that's my career in a nutshell. The business lines I've been the most exposed with and active in are radiology, EHR, Epic, for example, and but always, all the time, I've been focused on 100% software, medical device or product.
And so, talk me through the decision to move from like the classic kind of software engineering more into the QARA space.
Yeah, that's an interesting trajectory, I think, but it's also a very logical one. So let me explain. Software development is an activity that is such that it is unique. There is no way, in my opinion at least, that you will ever be able to do it with the right level of knowledge and understanding without a software development background. It's much easier, for example, to do quality management on the floor of a factory that does hardware. The art of software is such that you need to know it very well before talking about software quality management, and even more so. And in order to apply quality management principles and even more regulatory affairs necessities and requirements to software for software regulatory affairs is something that I discovered. And I think the leader that enabled this at the time saw this early on, that in order to talk to software engineers, we need to understand very well what they do. We all know that software development is a very specific activity that needs lots of controls. That is a very volatile activity, whatever the language, whatever the technology, and whatever the domain. But at the core, doing quality management on software, absent any software development capability and understanding, if not practice, is frankly, in my view of the world, utterly, completely impossible.
That's really interesting, because obviously we're having a lot of conversations right now with companies that are wanting to either add some software to their existing product portfolio or take their existing medical devices and make them smart. And so conversations are starting to arise around, okay, we need quality regulatory people that will be able to really focus on software. And the question is, where do you get these people from? Because they're such a small talent pool. And so it's really interesting that you say that, because some hiring managers have the belief that We need to find someone with a software engineering background that maybe wants to do something a bit different, and we will teach them RAQA. But then there's also the other school of thought of like, let's get someone that knows RAQA and we will teach them about software. And you're shaking your head. For those that are listening on the podcast, he's shaking his head on that second one. Why do you think that that wouldn't work?
While I would, what I respect the intention, and there's a logical flow somewhere in that approach, I consider it impossible. Knowing regulatory and quality management is one thing. Applying those principles to software is always a little bit touchy and difficult. If you know software in advance, if you have practiced the art of software development prior, it's going to be much easier to then understand regulatory affairs and quality management. And you will see right away that there is always a layer of, let's say, a supplemental layer of necessary interpretation to apply the principles of quality regulatory to software, given the way it is manufactured. I don't see, I know many people in the regulatory world are very, very talented people, maybe more talented than me, so for some of them. But they know, in each discussion, they do know, and they acknowledge, and they agree that doing quality management and regulatory affairs in the world of software is maybe the most difficult thing in the world of quality regulatory. With that, you mentioned that the pool of such resources is small. You're correct. I think today in the world of regulatory, maybe you have 10, 12% of regulatory able people who will be able to doing a great job hands-on in the software quality management or software regulatory affairs field. But the pool is growing though, because as you know, Elena, the nature of software is such these days that it is pervasive. You will find software everywhere and anywhere, in your car, in your coffee machine, in your medical devices, in planes, in boats, in your home, phone, of course. So it's everywhere. As such, the pool is growing. It's growing steadily. It's growing reasonably, because it's just not easy. Mm-hmm. And some people are just not interested, because there's an element of variance in software development that is such, back to my comment about a volatile activity, that is such that at times some people may be somehow discouraged.
So what are some of the specificities when it comes to software development, when you're looking at it from a Q&R perspective, that is very specific to software that doesn't typically exist when you're looking at a more classic kind of medical device?
So I think I read recently, one of the elements to consider is that I read recently, for example, in an industry paper, that the average length of the software generation is between 4 and 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. Which is basically today, a new generation of software, a new technology, a new way of doing things software-wise, that lasts and is current for about 6 weeks. It's a model that lends itself to changes, constant changes, and applying quality management in particular to practices that change all the time or at a higher pace is always tricky. Mm. Quality management is about establishing the principles and the documentation and the processes, the procedures, the verifications, and the training of staff necessary to make sure that whatever product is worked on, it leads to customer satisfaction. That's the best summary I can get. When things are moving all the time, you need to allow in your own quality system that things will change, namely, and adapt immediately. This is not true in the world of manufacturing for hardware products, for example. It's very static, actually. Mm-hmm. When you change a machine on the floor, you need to update your procedure. The machine changes every 10 years, maybe. Mm-hmm. In the world of software, you have phenomena such as open software, open source software, the new wave of AI. Was it new still? I'm not sure anymore, but the new and confirmed element of artificial intelligence in software, which is a distinctly different technology, that there's still not a real model, an affirmed, validated model to verify that AI solutions work. Please, there's no standard. And these are only examples as to how varied the discipline is. And there is something else. It's the people who do software development. I am one of them. Okay. Again, like I said earlier, my opinion is that in order to do sound quality management on software, you need to be a software developer. Mm-hmm. There is an element to take into account here. The software development activity is a very specific one where when you notice who the best software developers in the world are, they have specific mental constructs, and they use that all the time in the world of work. They put their mental structures and the way they like to concept things intellectually in their software. You will hear often in the software world that software for software engineers is like their babies in many ways. They create it, they maintain it, they're very close to it. It is nearly an emotional state. When you do quality management with that constituency, you need to be very careful and mindful about that, because there is a lot of sensitivity for the reasons above, which means that the people who do software, and they can use automation to a degree, but they will start always with doing it themselves, invest so much of their intellectual capital into structuring the software, making sure it works, that doing quality management, if it leads to updates to what they do or to the manner they choose to develop software, will never be an easy path. In particular, because that constituency is mostly made up of very analytical people and most of the time very intelligent people too. You need to make sure they understand, number one, what you're about. That quality management is not there to create some kind of a framework that they need to follow, period. It needs to be flexible from that perspective. It needs to be calibrated so that variance is always managed, accepted, but managed too, and that it does not lead to the rejection of the quality system by software engineering staff. That's one aspect.
That's really interesting, because this is a conversation that we're starting to have on repeat with various different stakeholders. And one thing that I noticed when it comes to MedTech and digital and the adoption of more digital technology in that is this excitement about, hey, we're going to hire some of the most talented software people out there. Recent conversation that I had with somebody who specialized in recruiting software engineers, he said to me that actually software engineers care so much about their product and what they're building, but actually if you were to ask them what industries would they definitely not want to work in, more times than not, they might say healthcare or banking, because of the amount of regulation and the fact that it's so slow compared to other industries. So what would you say if you're a MedTech company and you want to attract some really good software engineers, knowing this, how would you go about attracting them to your company?
So welcome to my world. Because we did just sum it up very, very nicely. So now that we understand, of course, that the profile of software engineers is specific, that the activity that consists of software engineering is very specific and very volatile, needs controls. How do we resolve that equation to put, on one hand, the controls in place to make sure that things work in order to ensure that the users are satisfied? And to correlate that with, so there's a basic number of rules you need to apply and processes that should be more or less systematic. And how do you make sure that your constituency, which is made of talented software developers, understands and follows those processes? That's the problem statement. Let me tell you, if you really want to do it very, very, very right and very quick, it's a very ambitious thing to do. That's also why I'm part of that industry, because I'm talking with very, very clever people, very bright people every day in the world of software, especially medical device. It's something that is very interesting to do, but you need to take the human element more in this domain of ours than any other, for the reasons I've just explained. One of the ways I found that is very helpful is to make sure that you introduce the concept of we don't overdo quality. We don't overdo procedures. We don't overdo administration. We don't, because there's no need. No quality standard will ever require you to be heavy on administration. The reason why at times we do have heavy quality systems is because out of goodwill, some regulatory and quality professionals want to cover everything to the nth degree to ensure the predictability of the quality levels. The problem is it's a very logical flow, but in the world of software, it doesn't work, because basically you're facing a situation where software developers, I don't think, will ever like to be administered. One of the reasons is if you put administration in the world too much in the world of software development, people are going to feel constrained, and that is going to limit their creativity. This is not any company's interest in the world of software, but very much the opposite. So you need to create the conditions for people to adopt the quality system My own approach is to make sure they are associated with it. That's what I do. That any procedure work, any work instruction, any template, any even quality objective needs to be vetted by the people who do the work. So there's a lot of relationship building. There's a lot of networking. There's a lot of things to do in terms of talking to people before you come up with a procedure. In my view of the world, Elena, coming up with the right procedure is the easy thing. Knowing what to do in regulatory in particular is the easy thing. What's more difficult, in my view as well, more interesting, is to make it happen on behalf of satisfied, maybe delighted clients and users. In the world of software, the simpler your system, the better off you will be in terms of adoption, in particular by staff, and also in terms of the realization of quality, which you can track in a much easier manner. The quality is the quality objective, basically, and you follow that guide. It's easier to follow because you have a simple quality system in place, at least is my proposition. And people adopt the same system quicker, more easily, more willingly than any complex administrative system. So, and I think that applies to human nature as a whole, but in particular to the constituency we're talking about, which is software development. And that's true for regulated or non-regulated software. But presenting simple systems with clear objectives that participates into client satisfaction always echoes very well with software developers.
So in your experience, where have you seen people overcomplicate areas of the QMS where in fact they could be a little bit simpler? I'm interested if there's like specific places that you can point to guide our listeners to maybe rethink the way that they're doing it.
Yeah. So some of it is in round, some of it is due to government and administration and regulation. So let's start with the first one. Again, like I said earlier, out of goodwill, some people will create complex systems because they want to cover every step of the software development activity. It is a strategic mistake because, again, back to the debate as to the volatility of software and the millions and millions of combination it can take, and the nature of software development that you will never be able to test the software 100% unless it's very simple. You need to make sure that your system does not reach too much. You need to make sure that the system covers the bases, that the system has objectives. That proposition, by in and out of itself, is not even accepted broadly. That the quality system criteria should be simplicity. And when you look at the big companies, maybe GE or Raytheon or others, when you look at their quality system, is an excellent quality system, but it's not a simple one. So, which means that the burden of understanding the quality system, those procedures, the burden of training, the burden of maintenance is significant. I don't think it leads to a better adoption. It leads to augmented costs. Does it lead to augmented quality levels? I doubt it in the world of software. I'm sure it does in the world of, I would say, manufacturing, regular manufacturing, but I'm really not sure it works so well in the world of software. The best quality systems have been able to witness and be active in the world of software, Elena, were the simplest. And Sirona Medical is a good example of that.
So simplicity and agility are basically the key things that you think are really important when it comes to QMS for specifically software, would you say?
Yeah, you said simplicity, agility, but appropriateness as well. What I've said were criteria and approaches that apply to the design of the quality system. It doesn't mean the quality system is not important. It is. It's a critical element of any business. So this should not be interpreted as some kind of a dismissal of the quality standard. It should not be interpreted as a dismissal of what needs to be done. It needs to be interpreted as the best quality system in the world is a lean quality system, maybe the leanest quality system. Because what the profession, at times doesn't realize, Elena, is that the more you beef up your quality system of sorts, the costlier it becomes. In elaboration, in training, in understanding, in adoption, and to measure the outcomes is not easy when you have a complex systems as well. When you want, for example, to do a root cause on why we have a major defect client side, if your quality system is simple, you will know sooner than later. If you have overly processes that may or may not make sense, that may or may not be necessary, it's going to be more difficult. So if there is one area, one domain where the lean management techniques are not only valid, but very appropriate, this is the world of software development, regardless of regulatory or regulated area or not. At least is it my opinion.
Really interesting. I want to talk a little bit more about the business and the stakeholders of the function. So CEOs, business partners within a company, what do you think they really want from their QARA partners in 2024?
Efficiency. What doesn't change is they want highest quality levels, and that has been true since the Deming times, many decades ago. Ever since Toyota came up with their quality system after the war, after the Second World War, the impetus towards quality has really grown significantly, with many experts such as, like I said, Deming, Crosby, and the others providing solutions. So since then, it's been evolving. And what I witnessed so far is the fact that the quality standards themselves have a tendency to consolidate and simplify. If you take the recent versions of 9001 or the latest version of 13485, this is not intricately complex, which is a good trend in my view. So that's part of the landscape. Back to your question, Elena, what hiring manager for a quality management position is looking for today is somebody who could accept those principles, which is basically understanding that the quality system is not a thing that is owned and exclusively by a quality department. It is a business system, or a good part of the business system, that needs to be followed by the sum of the employees, for example. People who understand that the propagation of the quality system is one thing, the creation of the quality system is one thing, the adoption of the quality system is the whole story. If you have a quality system that's not followed, why do you have a quality system? And that's a characteristic, unfortunately, if not a landmark, of quality systems that are overly complex. So today, in the world of we are, especially in software, which is the world I know the best, manager for any quality management position will predictably consider that, okay, this new hire understands that it's important that the quality system not only be lean enough, but also adopted enough, understood enough, followed by staff easily, and ideally owned by staff, which is the system I've instituted over time and as of late at Sirona, where the business owns their procedure and quality management is there to advise on the consistency of those procedures with applicable quality standard, which is in a way to empower the resources that follow procedures, let them make them their own. And the quality management regulatory person is there to make sure that the standards are followed. So that's really the best summary I could give. The level of ambition also that needs to be there in management, regulatory affairs, to put this, are not the faint of heart, I would say. You need to audits all the time, inspections by government, and they may or may not be easy. So there's a level of ambition that needs to be there, of fortitude and of assuredness that things get done the right way and helping others do the same. So there's a lot of networking, a lot of convincing, a lot of, propagating the gospel of quality maybe, that is a necessary part of what we do. And with that, you get the sum of the basic requirements for, I would say, an up-to-date, contemporary management position in the view of any hiring manager.
If you are that hiring manager and you're looking at bringing somebody on, how do you go about actually assessing their approach? Like, how do you actually understand if, okay, I'm speaking to somebody that has a tendency to overcomplicate, or someone who does have that lean and compliant at the same time mindset?
The best case and the simplest case, the best scenario is to see that it's present in their resume. Again, there's 10 to 15% of us that would kind of follow the vibe that we are talking about today, Elena. And you could see either explicitly or reading between the lines that the person has been involved or is motivated by leanest quality designs possible. So that we would see. Now, in the course of conversations, I start with soft skills at the risk of surprising I don't know of any successful quality management resource that doesn't have a strong network within their company. I don't know, it doesn't exist. Same for regulatory people. We need to have a strong network. One of the definitions of the position, any position quality management wise, Elena, is we are the ultimate influencers. We don't have the largest teams. Oftentimes we will have restricted teams, we do notice. So, but we interact with the cross-function of the company, of any company. Any company has purchasing activities, development activities, product planning activities, verification, testing activities, deployment activities, client relationship activities. These are all related to a quality system. So we do cover, we do show a cross-functional role. If you don't have the ability to influence, if you don't have the ability to network, if you don't have the ability to understand that everything is in motion, that the procedure is meant to be updated one day. If you don't understand that, maybe you're a bit stuck in the 60s, and it will not work in 2024. You need to accept that now there is a social element to quality management that is more and more prevalent. That is better defined by a quality manager's activity, in particular, to propagate the gospel of quality through explanation, of course, but also involvement of the different departments, every team member, and keeping it open for updates all the time. So there's a lot of soft skills in that. The easiest thing, so let me counter your question, the easiest thing in the world of quality is to know what needs to be done. Knowing the quality standard is easy. Regulatory-wise, knowing the FDA rule is the easiest. Knowing what needs to be done to be FDA compliant is the easy part. How to make it happen with the people at the company is where the real added value of any quality regulatory person lies, in my opinion.
It's really interesting because the soft skill piece is something that we harp on a lot about. But it's something that I see to become more and more important, especially as we start to have more technologies embedded in our processes, right? It's less about, okay, what do you know? And it's more about how can you work with people to execute a specific outcome? How do you build relationships? And so the more focus there is on, technologies coming into the workplace, the bigger I think the focus of the employee has to be on building human connections and human relationships in order to be successful and in order to stay current. So it's really interesting to hear you say that. What about outcomes though? So what would you say are some of like the best outcomes if we talk about this strategy? What are some of the best outcomes and the worst outcomes that we could see when it comes to developing a cost-effective QARA strategy in this lean way?
So let's start positive and start with the best. So you get the leanest quality system possible in conformity with applicable standards, FDA, European regulatory, ISO. Get that. It cannot be simpler. It cannot be leaner. This is the best quality system you have in conformity with the applicable standards it is helping implement. That's the best you can get from a quality system perspective. With an adopted system that people understand, at the company understand their quality system, are in support of their quality system, want to contribute to the quality system. Believe me, when you have that already, the quality management person can sleep better at night. Is the same, it's like you have the specific set of standards to follow. In the US, for example, where I am, FDA focuses the industry on patient safety, of course, and medical device effectiveness, which is not only about safety, but the medical device needs to be also very much performing. Mm-hmm. And you need to create a system that your production levels are consistent with those targets. So that's the best you can help create for your quality system. If you have that, then what will never change is people will change. You will have to retrain and make sure they understand and follow suit. Something else that doesn't change is that always changes is the quality standard themselves change. FDA's approach to things changes often to adapt to new technologies such as AI recently, and to adapt to maybe trends in medical device reporting. That's where we have potential patient safety issues, and that depending on technology maybe or lines of products. So everything changes and your system needs to be adaptable easily and at cost. The worst outcomes from a quality regulatory person are a complex quality system that is not adopted, is not rejected by people who don't understand what it's about, who see it as a constraint on their creativity, inventivity, well-being at work. I've seen that once. You have people leaving before the overly rules that an administrative quality system implies and directs. And it happened to me even not so long ago, why I decided to depart a company because the culture created by an overly administrative system was a disaster.
Mm.
First thing I was told at the company in question was, Patrice, be careful about the audits. The first thing I was told. I have 25 years in quality management at the time. So you don't do things that way. You don't do things negatively. You need to have the sound quality system. The worst scenario, as you are asking, is a quality system that is complex for no good reason, that is not clean, that is costly, that people reject. If you have that, you will not get the right quality levels anyways, because if your quality system is not followed, chances are there will be vagaries in the statistics and people will not just follow what needs to be followed. That leads to quality management and regulatory affairs issues, because if your quality system is not followed in and out of itself, that is a regulatory issue. So that's something to be very careful about, that the social aspect of a quality system in regulated industries or not, these days is more important than ever. And I see it growing still today, where maybe its definition of a sound quality system is that it is basically adopted, supported by staff. That's really the best definition.
So let's say you're in a company where you do have an overly complicated system and you're seeing, as you said, actually it's not fully being followed. What can you do to actually change that?
Simplify. You most of the time, lack of adoption by quality system, it can be a training issue because the training person is not great, or it can be a misunderstanding. Some people at times consider that quality system is going to be procedures, software is going to be heavy. No, some preconceptions that are wrong.
Mm.
So when you have that kind of situation, you need to talk to the people, number one, start there and explain what you're going to do, and that be humble enough that you need their help. A quality system is the ownership of a company, the ownership of the people. It's something that is owned collectively, especially under the model I've just mentioned, Elena, which means that procedures are owned by teams, not by quality management. So it's their baby a little bit. So they can nurse it, they can evolve it. Quality is there to advise and to maintain conformity to the quality standards that apply, like I said. And with that kind of system, you can evolve it. If you have a bad quality system that is not followed, not adopted, heavy, costly, with results that are questionable, you have a choice. Either, as we do in software at times when things don't go right, we do it from scratch again. Mm-hmm. And that happened to me. If you're saying there's potential to reuse some parts or all of them because it's complicated, but you could act on simplifying on that simplification in a quick manner, you can do that too. You will save some time maybe. But oftentimes we need to redo the whole thing.
So if we look towards the future then, as a QARA professional, what advice would you give for the way that people should be thinking about their roles within an organization in order to be relevant as well for the future?
Be social.
That doesn't mean going out for drinks with everyone, does it?
Well, that's not out of the equation, hopefully. I would say be social. Is the easy part. Quality standards is great. The rules, great. And there's a lot to know. Quality, you can understand and see the evolution of that quality management now is borderline fusing with business management rules, because all the quality standards now are meant to usher in business success, would you notice? So it's not only some kind of a construct that is an administrative thing, period. It's a business system that is meant to make the company successful sustainably. You even have company performance standards that exist. So understand it's a social game, if I can say so. Understand we are dealing with people before you deal with products, that the people own many different activities that will usher again in a sound product. In the world of software, this is of paramount experience. Some companies, software companies, even forget that software industries are about the people first. Talented people, people with PhD, with masters everywhere. And my company is no exception. Very, very talented people. You need to be able to leverage that talent. Putting them under a cover of administration is not the best way to leverage, believe me. So as you're asking for advice to current, maybe next generations for quality management focused people, I would say social understanding, lean systems are the best when they achieve with the applicable quality standards. Accept and agree and create the conditions that everything changes all the time. Quality standards change, technologies change, people change, leadership changes, ownership of companies change, business objectives change, markets change. The average lifespan of a software line of business is 6 weeks. Everything changes all the time. If your quality system is stuck in time and very difficult to evolve, after a few months or years at best, it will fail. So be open to change.
The only constant is change, as they say. I've got one last question for you, Patrice. This has been a fascinating conversation. Really focused on software, lean, how to develop a cost-effective QARA strategy. But I'm interested in you as a person, or Patrice the professional, let's say. What is the legacy that you want to leave on the world?
My legacy that, I guess I'm at that age now, I start thinking about this. Thank you. I'd say I want to make sure that the people that I work with and beyond, hopefully, agree that the recent wave and for the foreseeable future is not going to change of quality system and quality management. Number one is nearly fused, like I said earlier, Elena, with business management. The quality systems today are business systems meant to create sustained business success. Number one, but they understand that. It's not another construct only focused on quality levels of a given product. No, it's business success. The quality levels of any given products are enablers to current and future success at any company. The quality system is there for that. Understand that. It's a business system. Number two, be social. Understand that after 30 years in quality regulatory, see the science of quality evolve, if not the art, I would say, evolve towards a social game that needs to be pretty happening every day. You deal with people, especially in the world of software, people that are talented, like I said earlier in the conversation, and you need to be able to work with them. You need to help them be successful and propose that one way to organize things for efficiency is the quality system. By the way, you do own the procedures, make it your own. I will be by your side to make sure we still follow applicable quality standards. Something I'd like to warn against, and I don't know if it's a part of the legacy or what I want to influence things going forward, is there's a level to which the but the regulatory profession is a very serious profession for some reason. So I understand, somewhat tied to government and be perceived as very austere and very not fun. But however, when you look at it, FDA, for example, is a very compelling regulation, I'll go that far, which is pretty simple, believe it or not, to understand. It's just the sum of it may be impressive, but there's nothing dire, negative about doing quality or management or regulatory affairs for medical devices. There's every hope that we deliver patient safety and effectiveness every day. So it's a positive thing. And the regulatory profession maybe I think needs to be considered as a helper towards patient safety and medical device effectiveness. And there's no need to any artificially complex construct. No need to make things dramatic. Sometimes the regulatory profession to relax a little bit, and that FDA or European regulatory are well-meaning institutions that take a lot of effort to create standards and to make sure they are propagated, if not proselytized appropriately, on behalf of patients. So these are all positive adventures to be seen. Those agencies have to be seen as business partners. And we kind of mission, we need to respect them as business partners. There's no need for drama or interpretation of the mission of regulatory agencies. It's all goodness, I would say. So that's also something I'm trying to create, that, hey, FDA is a strong business partner of us. They help us access to market, enabling patient safety, medical device effectiveness in a very non-dramatic manner. And it's a necessity, of course. So that's what I'd like to share now going forward to further influence current peers and future peers, and one day the people who will take over.
Well, look, it's been fascinating having this conversation with you and hearing your unique perspective approach when it comes to cost-effective QARA strategies and your thoughts on the future. So thank you. And everybody, I hope you have enjoyed this episode today. Don't forget to give it a like, a thumbs up, follow Patrice on LinkedIn. Stay tuned for another episode of Career Diaries by Elemed coming soon. That's all from us. Patrice, goodbye.
Bye, and thank you for having me. It was fantastic. Thank you.